She is the leader of the Nebraska Democratic Party, and she now has a brand new job, or at least will here in the near future. I am joined by Jane Kleeb. Jane, thank you for taking a few minutes with me.
I'm excited to be with you.
Jane, can you tell us about the big news for you and your future, and describe the job a little bit for us that might know the some stuff within politics, but not everything?
Sure. So today I was elected the president of the Association of State Democratic Committees. So it is an arm of the Democratic National Committee that is in charge of all of the state parties. So basically, I'm kind of the president of all of the state parties, and I will represent all 57 state parties on the DNC as a vice chair. So I'm basically second in command on the DNC as well.
And wow, that's pretty impressive. Going from bold Nebraska, of course, and you serving on the school board, Hastings Public Schools, working your way all the way up now to a couple steps away from that chair, at the very top. And the person you're replacing is now that chair, right?
That's correct. Ken Martin, who just became the DNC chair yesterday, he has held this role for the past 8 years. He's the state chair from Minnesota. We have developed a close working relationship and have worked to really build state parties over the last 8 years that he's been the president of this association. We've gone from state parties only getting 2,500 a month to now state parties getting 12,500 a month, which is still not enough. The state parties are only 10% of the DNC budget. That's something that myself and Ken Martin, the new chair, are committed to changing, getting more resources out to the states.
So what does this mean for you personally, and what does this mean for Nebraska when it comes to the Democrats?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Most folks probably don't know this, but 75% of state party chairs on the Democratic side are full-time volunteers, including myself. So I've never been paid in my role as the Democratic Party chair. And, this role includes that kind of continued volunteer process. But what Ken Martin and I are trying to do is professionalize the state party chair role. So something that we're looking at is not only making sure that there's 4-year roles. We implemented that change a couple years ago here in Nebraska, but that state chairs are full-time paid folks. So they are doing this full-time. We got into this habit of party leaders being volunteers when our party was being led by rich people. And that is not the case anymore. Our party is really a party of working class and middle class folks, and we want it to remain that way. But we need to make sure that these positions have things like paid. And also, too much of our resources are focused only on DC or focused on 7 battleground states every year, which is why we are losing elections, which is why it's been hard for us in Nebraska to get beyond kind of the county level state ledge that we've been doing great on. We've gone from 500 Democrats to over 1,000 since I've been chair, but we can't win statewide unless we have more resources. So these are the things that Ken Martin and I are committed to really changing at the Democratic National Committee that we have not been able to because we haven't been in power at that level.
What does it say that, Ken Martin's Minnesota, you're in Nebraska, Midwest? I'm going to throw rural in there because I know you want to jump on that. What does that mean for the Democratic Party as a whole and as a nation going forward, trying to get different people elected as opposed to, being from New York or LA or the coast, stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, I will also be the first woman ASDC president in the last 25 years. And so it's been a quarter century since we've had a woman lead our association. And we haven't had a red state really ever. Whenever there's been red states, if you look at the list, it's when those red states were blue. And so this is really breaking new ground. I think what it says is Nebraska really has punched above our weight. We've really proven that you can turn an organization around and build the infrastructure, build staff. We've gone from 1 paid staff to 7 full-time paid staff, for example. And I think it really shows that we are, Midwest is best, if you will, that us building in the Midwest, there's a lot of battleground states now in the Midwest. Folks are moving. We're becoming more diverse. As folks know, in our Tri-Cities, more and more Latino families and African-American families are moving into our communities. So they're safe. We have good jobs, we have good public schools. And so that's something we're really proud about in the Midwest, is that we're actually gaining population. And so that's something that Ken and I are going to bring to the national level, more of a common sense, practical approach to party building. You can't win elections unless you have a strong party infrastructure. And that's our job as DNC chair for Ken and ASDC president for me.
So looking forward, 2026 is right around the corner already, literally a year away. What is your next job now
Yeah.
as chair of a national organization and vice chair of, the National Democrats? Looking at House races and Senate races and some governor races, as well as the county level and state level stuff. What is next for you when it comes to stuff like that?
It's important to note, in case the Republicans were getting really gleeful, that I'm only going to be focused on the national level. In my role, it's required that you still remain a party chair. So I'm going to continue to run the Nebraska Democratic Party as a full-time volunteer. I'll still do that work. They always say, either ask a busy mom to do things if you want to get something done. I know how to multitask. But we're looking, obviously, we want to win that second congressional district. We've heard lots of rumors that Bacon may not be running again, whether or not he does or doesn't. For us, we know that we need to get somebody who can reach across the rural of Saunders County, which is where we really lost that race. We were able to, get up the margins in order for us to win the blue dot for Kamala Harris this cycle, but that wasn't enough to pull Tony Vargas over the finish line because we just lost too much margin in the rural area for him. So that's an area we're focusing on right now. We've actually hired a rural organizer for that area to already hit the ground running. We also have legislative races that are going to be super critical for us in 2026. We actually think we can hit 20 Democrats in 2026. There's a lot more races opening up in the Lincoln and Omaha area, as well as in some rural areas that have more working class, middle class folks that we think, look, when you look at Nebraska, Republicans have led for the last 20 years. Property taxes haven't gone down. The big four packers are still concentrating beef prices. We have not been able to fully fund our public schools. And in fact, they're under more attack by Republicans' voucher and private school schemes. And so we really do have a message to sell. The big issue for us is we haven't been able to get that message out because we haven't had resources to run statewide and get that message out on a year-round basis. Ken and I are committed to doing that, expanding the map, talking to voters everywhere, and bringing back voters. I know that we're seen as, coastal liberal, and, Democrats are the party of the working class folks. We believe in helping people. And I think that is going to be a stark contrast into what we're already seeing in just a couple weeks out of the Trump administration.
I'll go that direction with my next question then. What do the Democrats, as a large picture view, not necessarily state by state, but what does the party need to do to, say, combat Donald Trump and that wing of the Republican Party going forward into 2026, 2028? Because you did talk about the 7 big states in the 2024 election. They went his direction, even though you might think Pennsylvania might lean another way. What do the Democrats have to do to try to win some of those middle ground voters back?
We're going to have to do several things all at the same time. It's not going to just be one strategy. First, we're definitely going to have to punch back. So there's this theory that we can't punch back, that we only have to go on the offense, and that's just nonsense. Voters are going to expect us to stand up for them, to push back on Donald Trump's lie or misinformation. We didn't have a strong enough misinformation pushback machine this past time, and it just spread all over social media. And so that's something that we're focused on, is getting a strong war room and being much more creative in reaching voters where they're at, whether that's podcasts, social media, or on traditional news. We really believe still in traditional news. That's an important part for folks to actually get their news. It's a valued and trusted source. We also want to go on the offense. What are the big ideas that the Democratic Party is going to be putting on the table for the next 10 years, where folks can look at us and say, actually, those are the leaders that I want in office at the state or the national level? Things like expanding public education to include pre-K and 2 years of community college for every kid, that is a child's now public education experience instead of kindergarten through high school. So we're committed to doing that, while also, of course, doing all the things we have to do as a party: partisan voter registration, candidate recruitment, candidate training, training up our state party chairs, vice chairs, and executive directors and party staff, constantly doing communication. So there's lots of layers of our jobs as party chairs and vice chairs and party leaders, but we're committed to doing it. And I think, quite frankly, there's going to be a real need to have a more positive message of where America's going with the types of things that you're seeing from Trump, with attacking Canada and Mexico, which are obviously two of our strongest trading partners.
Might come back to tariffs in a moment. But my next question, I do want to talk about that blue dot you mentioned a little bit ago. You know, Kamala Harris won with you guys backing her in Omaha area. Could that blue dot be gone? You know, they're talking winner take all this time around. It didn't work in 2024, but they're talking about it in 2025 at the legislative level. Your thoughts on that and what that could mean?
Since I've been chair, we were able to secure the electoral vote both times, both in 2020 and 2024. We're very proud of that. We worked hard with both presidential candidates to make that happen. The Republicans are at it again in the legislature this year to try to remove the fair electoral vote system. They're saying that we should be like all the other states. Well, we're not like all the other states when it comes to public power. We're very proud of the fact that we are different. We're unique. We're also unique with our 100% unicameral, nonpartisan. I think other states should be following us. When you have a split electoral system, that means congressional districts within a state have more ability to show their political independence. So in California, for example, there are red congressional districts. So if California, New York, and in the entire United States followed Nebraska's model, you would have a more fair view of voters and presidential candidates would have to actually talk to voters across the United States. And my view is, look, if you can't come and talk to voters in all three congressional districts in Nebraska, then you don't deserve our votes. So put your money where your mouth is. You know, Donald Trump did not campaign in our state. That's why he didn't win that congressional district vote. And we're saying to all presidential candidates, 2028 is going to be competitive on both sides. Why would we sideline Nebraska that year of all years when we're going to be showered with a lot of money in our communities with presidential candidates on the Republican and Democratic side? Let's keep our fair split electoral vote system.
Talk tariffs a second ago. What are your thoughts? I think you kind of already mentioned it, but the Trump move this weekend with tariffs on Mexico and Canada, as well as some on China and Mexico, talking about retaliatory tariffs. Who knows where this ends within a week or a month or who knows what. But your thoughts on what that means going forward for the country and what you would like to see be done differently.
I think a lot of voters did go with Trump this time because he promised he was going to lower prices, that he was going to lower grocery store prices, gas prices, egg prices in particular. And we know that that isn't happening. And in fact, when you add tariffs, you're going to basically increase the price of goods at the grocery store or refrigerators or any other things that you're needing to purchase as a family. So he's doing the opposite of what he said he was going to do. Now, he's going to play strong man and big guy and kind of punch his weight, but I don't think that that's what Americans wanted. Instead, couldn't we come to the table with Canada and Mexico to say, you know, how can we balance some trade agreements? And some of the trade agreements that we're working under right now are trade agreements that Trump put in place. So he's negotiating against his own plans. For our state in particular, we are an ag state. We export a lot of corn and we export a lot of beef and pork. This is absolutely nuts to put our farmers and ranchers on pins and needles on whether or not this kind of brash take on exports and tariffs and trade is going to work. We would rather have a more even keel approach as Nebraskans. So we will see, but I think what Trump is saying is basically some people are going to have to hurt. That's not what a leader should be doing.
Jane Kleeb, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Anything else you want to mention that I haven't thought of when it comes to your new big position going on there with the DNC?
Well, I'll be traveling a lot, of course. So Scott and the kids are going to be holding down the home front a lot more than they already currently are. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. Obviously, this is not my house in Hastings. But, you know, I will see everybody around. I'm always at Small Town Famous and Back Alley Bakery. So I look forward to seeing everybody and visiting more in person as well.